Tens of millions of Americans have already voted, and with Election Day less than 2 weeks away, the FBI is warning Americans about a foreign attempt to attack the integrity of this election by spreading misinformation. They announced tonight groups from Russia and Iran have been blasting out fake emails threatening voters in order to get them to vote a certain way. Jobin Paniker joins us live now. Jobin, what exactly did these emails say?
Well, these were targeted emails to specific voters. They were direct threats to vote for a specific candidate, and voters were actually addressed by name in these emails. We want to show you some of these pictures from earlier. The FBI and other intelligence agencies held that press conference late tonight, and the message was direct to the American public, essentially saying, don't fall for these intimidation tactics and disinformation campaigns by foreign actors. The Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, says both Russia and Iran are involved. Ratcliffe says they are using spoof emails and videos to create chaos in our elections. They have taken publicly available voter data to find these voters. Now, one of those emails sent to Democrats claiming to be from the Proud Boys, which we know to be a fringe group. Now, that group denies sending those emails that read, vote for Trump or we will come after you. Ratcliffe also says there is a campaign to damage the president. Let's listen in.
These actions are desperate attempts by desperate adversaries. Even if the adversaries pursue further attempts to intimidate or attempt to undermine voter confidence, know that our election systems are resilient, and you can be confident your votes are secure.
We reached out to the Texas Secretary of State. The office says they are not aware of any efforts to intimidate Texas voters. I also spoke with the elections administrator in Collin County, Bruce Sherbet. He says it is business as usual tomorrow for early voting. He says we will stay vigilant, we will stay prepared, as we always have. Reporting live here in Dallas, I'm Jobin Paniker.
All right, Jobin, thank you. WFAA's Teresa Woodard joins us now for some perspective. We're not talking about foreign groups actually hacking into voter registration systems here, but we live in a time where misinformation is just a click away, and that's exactly what these foreign groups were trying to do. Do you think they made an impact?
Well, they can only make an impact if we let them, if Americans let them, if Americans fall for all of this, if we believe those emails, if we forward them, or if we share false information on social media, or we circulate unsubstantiated rumors. That's how Russia and Iran can make an impact. Here's political science professor Matthew Wilson from SMU.
I don't think we should be scared that foreign actors will actually be able to materially affect the vote tallies. So I think we can be pretty safe on that score. However, I think we should be somewhat concerned that Americans are so polarized and so willing to believe the worst about our political opponents that we could readily play into and fall for some of these disinformation schemes.
So once again, Russia is involved in trying to rig another election. This time the system worked to flag it. So let's talk about who is at this news conference tonight. John Ratcliffe is a staunch Republican and a Trump ally.
He was. And so with good reason, some people may view what he says as skepticism. He's certainly a familiar face to many North Texans. Up until this spring, he was a congressman from the Rockwall area. Now, because he is an ally of President Trump, some people might be skeptical, but he repeatedly said tonight, this is not partisan. FBI Director Christopher Wray was also at that news conference tonight, and perhaps that was an attempt to sort of balance out the information and make sure that this was clearly a vision that was coming from the entire intelligence community.
You know, we receive texts and letters from these campaigns all the time. How do we know what's real or what's fake right now?
That's the million-dollar question. I think the most important thing for people is the source. When it comes to election or voting information, the sources you should absolutely turn to are the Secretary of State for the state of Texas or your county election administrator. If you're looking for information about a candidate, you need to go to their individual websites and look for their platforms. Don't trust information that comes from anywhere else. And we can't say this enough. What's important for people to realize, if you voted early yesterday, if you're going to vote early tomorrow, or if you're planning to vote on Election Day, all of the people in the intelligence community are saying your vote is absolutely safe. This is about a disinformation campaign, a misinformation campaign across the country.
In the meantime, we have to do our homework, but it is getting harder and harder to do.
We're going to all be ready when this election is over.
Yeah, and that's very bipartisan. Thank you, Teresa. You know,